Every day, someone will try to influence your thoughts, your emotions, or your decisions. Some will do it with praise, others with fear, guilt, or temptation. The question is not whether manipulation exists. The question is whether you have the strength to remain yourself. The Stoics believed that true freedom begins when your mind belongs to no one but you. Today, we'll uncover 7 timeless Stoic secrets inspired by Marcus Aurelius that can make you calm under pressure, immune to emotional control, and impossible to manipulate. Imagine waking up every morning with the certainty that no insult can shake you, no praise can intoxicate you, and no emotional trick can pull you away from your purpose. Most people believe strength comes from physical power, intelligence, or influence. The Stoics saw it differently. They believed the strongest person in any room is the one who governs their own emotions. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself repeatedly that the events of life are not what disturb us. What disturbs us is the judgment we attach to those events. That single idea has the power to transform every relationship, every challenge, and every confrontation you will ever face. Manipulation begins where emotional control ends. The moment someone discovers they can trigger your anger, fear, guilt, pride, or insecurity, they have found a doorway into your decisions. They no longer need to argue with your reason because they can bypass it entirely. A careless comment can make you defend yourself. A compliment can make you seek approval. A threat can make you surrender your values. Every emotional reaction becomes information that others can use if they choose. The Stoics understood this danger long before psychology gave it a name. Marcus Aurelius spent his life surrounded by people with different motives. As emperor, he encountered flatterers hoping for rewards, rivals seeking opportunities, critics questioning every decision, and enemies waiting for moments of weakness. Yet his private reflections reveal an extraordinary commitment. Instead of trying to control everyone around him, he focused on mastering the only thing truly within his power, his own response. He understood that the world would never stop testing him, but he could decide how those tests would shape his character. Think about how often people lose control over small situations. Someone cuts them off in traffic, and their entire day is ruined. A negative comment online keeps them awake at night. A disagreement at work follows them home. A single rejection convinces them they are not good enough. The event itself may last only seconds, yet the emotional reaction can dominate hours, days, or even years. This is exactly how manipulation gains strength. When your emotions become automatic, your actions stop being intentional. The Stoic approach does not ask you to become cold or emotionless. It asks you to become conscious. There is a profound difference between feeling an emotion and obeying it. Anger may appear, but you do not have to speak from it. Fear may arise, but you do not have to surrender because of it. Disappointment may visit your mind, but you do not have to build your identity around it. Emotions are natural guests. The mistake is allowing them to become permanent rulers. Consider someone who insults you publicly. Most people experience an immediate urge to respond. Their heart races. Their breathing changes. Their mind begins creating arguments before the other person has even finished speaking. They feel compelled to defend themselves because silence feels like defeat. But what if the insult was never the real battle? What if the true battle was whether another person's words could determine your inner state? Marcus Aurelius would remind himself that another person's opinion belongs to them, not to him. If their words were unjust, they reflected the speaker's character more than his own. Every emotional trigger has a hidden question behind it. Anger asks whether someone else controls your peace. Fear asks whether uncertainty controls your courage. Envy asks whether comparison controls your happiness. Pride asks whether praise controls your identity. Until you answer these questions wisely, manipulation remains possible. Many manipulators rely on speed. They want instant reactions because thoughtful people are difficult to control. They provoke you before you have time to reflect. They pressure you before you have time to analyze. They flatter you before you have time to question their intentions. They create urgency because emotion grows strongest when reason has no opportunity to intervene. The Stoics reversed this process. They slowed everything down. Between the event and the response, they created space. Inside that space, freedom exists. Imagine someone accusing you unfairly during a meeting. Instead of reacting immediately, you pause, you breathe. You examine whether the accusation contains truth. If it does, you learn from it. If it does not, you recognize that another person's misunderstanding cannot redefine your character. That pause may last only a few seconds, but those seconds separate wisdom from impulsiveness. They separate self-mastery from manipulation. Marcus Aurelius often reflected on the temporary nature of human opinions. Today's criticism becomes tomorrow's forgotten conversation. Today's praise disappears just as quickly. If both approval and disapproval fade with time, why surrender your emotional stability to either one? The Stoic recognizes that permanence belongs to character, not reputation. Think of emotional reactions like sparks landing on dry grass. If the grass is neglected, one spark creates a wildfire. If the ground is prepared and cared for, the spark burns out almost immediately. Your mind works the same way. Hidden resentment, unresolved insecurity, constant comparison, and unchecked pride create conditions where every small event becomes an emotional explosion. Daily self-examination removes that fuel before life ignites it. One of the greatest illusions is believing emotions always tell the truth. Fear often exaggerates danger. Anger exaggerates injustice. Pride exaggerates importance. Anxiety exaggerates uncertainty. The Stoics questioned every emotional impulse before accepting it as reality. They asked whether their first impression deserved their trust. That simple habit prevented countless unnecessary conflicts. Imagine receiving harsh criticism from someone whose judgment you respect. Your first reaction may be embarrassment or defensiveness. Yet instead of protecting your ego, you investigate the criticism honestly. If it reveals a weakness, you improve. If it is mistaken, you remain calm because truth does not require emotional panic. Either way, your peace remains intact because your goal is growth rather than validation. Manipulators often study emotional patterns more carefully than their victims do. They notice who becomes defensive easily. They notice who cannot tolerate silence. They notice who constantly seeks approval. They notice who fears rejection. Once those patterns become predictable, influencing behavior becomes surprisingly simple. This is why self-awareness is such a powerful defense. When you understand your own weaknesses, others lose the advantage of discovering them first. Marcus Aurelius constantly observed his own thoughts. He treated his mind like a disciplined guard watching the entrance to a city. Every impression seeking entry had to be examined. Was it useful? Was it true? Was it worthy of influencing action? Without this vigilance, destructive emotions enter unnoticed and gradually reshape character from within. Picture yourself facing an unexpected setback. Perhaps a project fails after months of effort. Many people immediately conclude that they themselves are failures. Notice how quickly the mind transforms an event into an identity. The Stoics refused to make that leap. Failure described an outcome, not a person. A setback described a moment, not a destiny. By separating external events from internal worth, they protected themselves from despair. Emotional mastery also changes the way you listen. Instead of hearing only words that threaten your ego, you begin hearing information. Someone's anger may reveal their frustration more than your mistake. Someone's criticism may expose their expectations. Someone's praise may reveal admiration rather than objective truth. You become less concerned with emotional impact and more interested in understanding reality accurately. There is remarkable power in refusing to be hurried emotionally. Modern life encourages instant reactions. Notifications demand immediate attention. Arguments escalate within seconds. Opinions spread faster than reflection. The Stoic mind resists this pressure. It values accuracy more than speed. It understands that delayed wisdom is more valuable than immediate regret. Another reason emotional reactions invite manipulation is because they narrow perception. Anger sees enemies everywhere. Fear sees danger everywhere. Jealousy sees unfairness everywhere. Calmness, however, sees options. A composed mind notices possibilities hidden from an agitated one. This expanded awareness makes wiser decisions possible. Imagine negotiating with someone who repeatedly attempts to provoke you. They interrupt. They question your competence. Their goal is not merely disagreement. Their goal is emotional imbalance because an angry person makes predictable mistakes. By remaining composed, you deny them the very outcome they seek. Your calmness becomes a form of strength that requires no aggression. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself that every human being acts according to what they believe is right, even when they are mistaken. This perspective softened resentment. Instead of seeing every difficult person as an enemy, he saw many as individuals acting from ignorance, fear, or confusion. Understanding another person's motives did not excuse harmful behavior, but it reduced unnecessary hatred. Hatred consumes the one carrying it more than the one receiving it. Self-control grows through practice rather than inspiration. You cannot expect perfect calm during major crises if you lose patience over minor inconveniences. Every small irritation becomes training. Long lines, delayed messages, criticism, mistakes, unexpected changes. Each offers another opportunity to strengthen emotional discipline. The Stoics viewed ordinary frustrations as exercises preparing them for extraordinary challenges. When someone praises you excessively, emotional mastery is just as important as when someone insults you. Flattery can manipulate as effectively as criticism. People eager for approval often compromise principles to preserve admiration. Marcus Aurelius warned himself against becoming dependent on applause, because dependence always creates vulnerability. The more your identity relies on praise, the easier it becomes for others to guide your choices. Imagine two individuals facing identical criticism. One becomes furious, argues endlessly, and spends the evening replaying every word. The other listens carefully, accepts what is useful, discards what is false, and continues working toward meaningful goals. Both experienced the same event. Only one surrendered control of the day. The Stoics believed true freedom begins within. A person chained by emotional impulses remains dependent regardless of wealth or status. Another person possessing inner discipline remains free even during hardship. Freedom is not merely the absence of external control. It is the presence of internal mastery. Every reaction teaches your mind what to repeat. If you consistently reward anger with immediate action, anger grows stronger. If you reward patience with thoughtful decisions, patience becomes easier over time. Character is built through repetition. The habits you practice daily become the instincts you rely upon under pressure. Emotional mastery also requires humility. Sometimes our feelings reveal genuine injustice. Other times they reveal wounded pride. Wisdom lies in distinguishing between the two. The Stoic refuses to assume every emotional response deserves obedience simply because it feels intense. Intensity is not evidence of truth. There will always be people who attempt to provoke, discourage, flatter, intimidate, or pressure you. Their methods may change with culture and technology, but human nature remains remarkably consistent. Those who cannot govern themselves are easily governed by circumstances and by others. Those who learn to observe their emotions without becoming prisoners of them develop a quiet resilience that cannot be purchased or borrowed. Their peace no longer depends on perfect conditions. Their confidence no longer depends on universal approval. Their decisions no longer belong to whoever speaks the loudest or provokes the deepest emotion. They remain steady because they have discovered the Stoic secret that real power begins the moment you stop allowing your emotions to make your decisions. From the moment we enter the world, we begin searching for approval. As children, we seek it from our parents. In school, we seek it from teachers and classmates. As adults, we seek it from employers, friends, strangers, and even people who barely know our names. Without realizing it, many people spend their entire lives chasing invisible applause. The Stoics recognized this habit as one of the greatest obstacles to freedom. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself repeatedly that the opinions of others are beyond his control, and anything beyond his control should never become the foundation of his peace. The desire for external validation seems harmless at first. Everyone appreciates being respected, recognized, or admired. There is nothing wrong with enjoying appreciation when it comes naturally. The problem begins when approval changes from a pleasant bonus into a daily necessity. The moment your happiness depends on someone else's opinion, your emotional freedom is no longer your own. You have quietly handed another person the power to influence your confidence, your decisions, and even your identity. Manipulation becomes incredibly easy when someone knows you crave validation. They do not need to threaten you. They simply promise acceptance. They praise you when you obey and withdraw their approval when you resist. Over time, you stop asking whether your actions are right. Instead, you ask whether people will approve of them. Your moral compass slowly gives way to public opinion. Marcus Aurelius ruled one of the most powerful empires in history, yet he constantly reminded himself not to become addicted to praise. He understood something that many people never realize. Crowds are inconsistent. The same people who celebrate you today may criticize you tomorrow. Public opinion shifts with emotion, trends, misunderstandings, and personal interests. Building your identity on something so unstable guarantees inner instability. Think about how often people change themselves to fit expectations. Someone hides their true opinions because they fear rejection. Another pretends to enjoy things they secretly dislike simply to belong. Someone else accepts disrespect because they fear being disliked. These decisions rarely happen all at once. They happen gradually, one compromise at a time, until the person can no longer distinguish between their authentic self and the version they created to satisfy everyone else. The Stoics believed your worth does not increase because someone praises you, nor does it decrease because someone criticizes you. Your character remains your character regardless of how others describe it. If a truthful person is falsely accused of dishonesty, the accusation changes nothing about reality. Likewise, if a dishonest receives endless praise, admiration does not transform deception into integrity. Truth exists independently of applause. Imagine carrying a mirror everywhere you go, except this mirror does not reflect your appearance. Instead, it changes every time someone looks at you. One person says you are intelligent, and your reflection becomes brighter. Another calls you incapable, and suddenly your reflection darkens. A third person admires your confidence, and once again your image changes. Before long, you no longer know what you truly look like because your identity depends entirely on whoever happens to be observing you. This is exactly what happens when external validation becomes the foundation of self-worth. Many manipulators understand the power of praise better than criticism. Criticism often creates resistance, but praise lowers defenses. They complement your talents, your generosity, your loyalty, or your intelligence. Gradually, those compliments become tools of influence. You begin making decisions not because they align with your principles, but because you fear losing the admiration attached to them. Marcus Aurelius warned himself against becoming intoxicated by reputation. He reflected on how quickly even the greatest names in history faded into memory. Generals, philosophers, rulers, and heroes who once dominated conversations eventually became forgotten by generations that follow. If history itself forgets even remarkable individuals, why should anyone sacrifice inner peace chasing temporary approval? Social comparison feeds the desire for validation. Every time people measure their worth against someone else's achievements, appearance, wealth, or popularity, they strengthen dependence on external judgment. The Stoics challenged this habit directly. They asked a different question. Instead of asking whether they were admired, they asked whether they were improving. Instead of asking whether people approved of them, they asked whether they acted according to reason and virtue. Imagine an archer practicing every day. If the archer measures success only by applause from spectators, practice becomes frustrating whenever the audience disappears. But if the archer measures success by improving technique, discipline, and focus, progress continues regardless of who is watching. The Stoics encouraged living like that archer. Excellence should not depend on an audience. Approval often arrives with invisible conditions. People may admire you as long as you agree with them. They may respect you as long as you remain useful. They may praise your kindness until your kindness no longer serves their interests. When approval depends on conditions outside your control, it becomes unreliable. Basing your identity on something unreliable guarantees emotional instability. There is another hidden danger in seeking validation. It encourages performance instead of authenticity. People begin asking, what version of myself will receive the most praise, rather than what is the right thing to do. This shift is subtle but profound. Character slowly becomes a costume designed for public acceptance instead of an expression of deeply held principles. Marcus Aurelius spent countless hours examining his own motives. He did not merely ask whether an action appeared noble. He asked whether it truly was noble. Appearance mattered far less than intention. A generous act performed solely for admiration lacked the inner virtue that the Stoics valued most. True goodness required sincerity rather than performance. Consider how easily compliments influence behavior. Someone praises your intelligence, and suddenly you avoid asking questions because you fear appearing uninformed. Someone admires your strength, and you begin hiding vulnerability even when honesty would help. Someone calls you successful, and you become terrified of failure because failure threatens the identity built upon their approval. What began as encouragement quietly transforms into emotional dependence. People who no longer require constant validation become remarkably difficult to manipulate. Compliments no longer distract them from their values. Criticism no longer destroys their confidence. They evaluate feedback based on truth rather than emotional comfort. If criticism is accurate, they improve. If praise is deserved, they accept it with gratitude, but without attachment. Their identity remains rooted in character rather than opinion. The Stoics believed self-respect grows from keeping promises made to yourself. Every time you act according to your principles despite external pressure, confidence deepens. Every time you compromise your values merely to gain acceptance, confidence weakens. Real confidence cannot be given by applause, because it was never created by applause in the first place. Imagine standing in a room where every person offers a different opinion about who you should become. One tells you to pursue wealth. Another urges fame. Someone else values comfort above all else. Another insists popularity matters most. If you attempt to satisfy every voice, you end up walking in circles. Without an internal standard, every external opinion becomes another direction